Thing ring, do your thing. And with that somewhat bizarre utterance, thousands of comic book fans were left wondering what the heck was going on as a skinny nerd turned into the ever-loving, blue-eyed Thing. So who was this skinny kid? What was this ring? How did he get it? Why did it turn him into the Thing? Would these questions ever be answered? Well, a little, but not much. In 1979, Hanna-Barbera Productions aired Fred and Barney Meet the Thing on Saturday mornings. Now, the show obviously combined the new Fred and Barney show starring Fred and Barney and The Thing, a new series co-produced with Marvel Comics. Now, Fred and Barney, they never actually met the Thing except in the little opening to the show. So it was a little bit of false advertising there. Well, apparently the idea for the show originated with NBC president Fred Silverman, who had a concept for a show, cartoon, involving a boy with a magic ring. Now, Fred Silverman looms large in the history of Saturday morning cartoons. He was the one who sort of got Scooby-Doo on the air. In fact, Freddy is named for Fred Silverman. He was also involved in the Mighty Orbots much later on, but he had a lot to do with some of the great cartoons that we all enjoyed as kids. So he had this concept. Well, they decided, okay, we're going to need a recognizable character, though, for this cartoon. I'm guessing maybe he kind of dropped it on them when they weren't ready for it. Well, Hanna-Barbera at the time was working with Marvel Comics, and so they managed to negotiate the use of Ben Grimm, the Thing, for this show. Now, the show is slightly confusing. The opening, and try as I might, I could not find a good, clean copy of it, shows the Thing being bathed in some sort of rays in a machine while being watched by a Professor Harkness and his daughter Kelly. All right, so the ray changed the Thing into a teenage boy. Well, maybe not. The alteration, the transmogrification, is referred to in one episode in which Professor Harkness cautions the Thing from drinking from some sort of potion as it might make him even younger. Okay, all right. But more to the point, in episode 14, To Thing or Not to Thing, Harkness uses an experimental device to try to effect a cure for Ben Grimm. Now, this episode makes it sound like Ben Grimm, test pilot, was turned into both Benji Grimm, the skinny teenager, and the Thing, big orgy rock guy. Now, how the magic ring works into it, I honestly have no idea. So while this show is just absolute hell on Marvel Comics lore, it does borrow a few things from the Thing. For one, when he's in the form of the Thing, the character acts just about the way you would expect the Thing to act. He's kind of brash, he's funny, got the gravelly voice. In fact, he sounds like Jimmy Durante, performed by Joe Baker, and he basically clobbers and pounds his way through all of his problems. Moreover, he is tormented by the Yancey Street Gang, which in this incarnation is a trio of somewhat stupid bikers: Spike Hanrahan, voiced by Art Metrano, Stretch, voiced by Wayne Morton, and Turkey, voiced by Michael Sheehan. They actually kind of reminded me a little bit of the Gangrene Gang from the Powerpuff Girls. I don't know if they were an inspiration at all for that. Well, the new material involves his life as a teenager, Benji Grimm, also voiced by Wayne Morton, and in which he has a group of friends, one of them, of course, being Professor Harkness, voiced by John Stevenson, his younger daughter, Kelly, voiced by Noelle North, and his older daughter, Betty, voiced by Marilyn Scheffler. And Betty appears to maybe have a crush on the Thing, while Benji kind of has a crush on her. So wait a minute. Is that adult Ben Grimm in the form of a teenager having kind of a crush on another high school kid? That'd be a little bit weird. I don't think things were super thought through on this thing. It's all kept a little bit vague. And he also has a frenemy in the form of Ronald Radford, voiced by John He-Man Irwin. He's like the local snobby rich kid who competes with him for Betty's attention. And I swear, Joel Hodgson in Freaks and Geeks really reminds me of that Ronald character. Obviously, a little bit old there to play the role in the live-action Weird Thing cartoon show, but you get the idea. So like I said, Betty kind of seems to have eyes for the Thing. She's very impressed with him as a superhero. So I guess if Alicia Masters acted a little bit like Veronica Lodge, you'd have Betty, kind of. Along the way in the cartoon, you get 26 10-minute episodes in which Benji and his friends get into wacky situations that are solved when Benji ducks off, does the Thing ring, do your thing bit, and turns into the Thing. It's kind of a cool transformation thing. There's a big kind of flash of light, and then you see all these rocks like heading for the partially formed Thing. You kind of notice he's missing a little bit of his shoulder there, and then he finally forms. Now, you do get the idea that there are no actual rocks shooting in from somewhere to form him. Again, it's always just a little bit vague. Well, sometimes the bad guys he deals with are the Yancey Street Gang, but he also has to tangle with mad scientists, as in episode 13, Double Trouble for the Thing, in which he battles a robot Thing made by Danton Blackwood, and in episode 9, when he tangles with the creations of absent-minded Professor Dr. Quimby's robot invention, Clunk. And then in episode 26, when he deals with another absent-minded professor, Fenwick Twilly, uncle of Centerville High School principal Twilly, who invents a giant vacuum cleaner called Super Vac. And you could tell it's kind of a goofy cartoon. It's not, a real serious superhero affair. He tangles with a lonely Bigfoot in episode 2. He has amnesia in episode 8, one of the classic tropes, although I don't think the writers really understood how amnesia works. Crashed a beach party in episode 10, where he fought an octopus. He fought a magician/con man, Decepto the Great, in episode 11. Survived a haunted ghost town in episode 4. And an apparently haunted boat in episode 25. In other words, your basic sitcom Scooby-Doo style plot of the day, with the Thing crammed into this group of teenagers for no obvious reason other than the fact that they needed to have a big name. Like I said, we never really figure out how Ben Grimm ended up as a teenager with a magic ring in Centerville, or whether he ever escapes his odd fate. The show's not actually bad when you compare it to similar cartoons of the time, and it almost scratches the comic book fans' itch for the Thing. When in Thing form, like I said, you kind of get what you would expect from the character. The Jimmy Durante voice actually kind of works. I mean, you have to remember, Ben Grimm, whatever year it happens to be now, is really a character from the 1940s. He uses a catchphrase from William Bendix when he played Riley in The Life of Riley, an old radio show. So a 1940s comedian with a gruff voice kind of works for the Thing, obviously. But the thing is, no pun intended, in 1978, you already had the new Fantastic Four with, of course, Ben Grimm as the Thing. So kind of weird that they would do this. And you definitely do not get something like the Thing stories that were published in Marvel 2-in-1 from 1974 to 1983. That would, by the way, be the issue that was on the stands when the cartoon premiered. So, in the end, the Thing is only tangentially related to the comic book character that we've all come to know and love, which is really kind of a revolting development, because an actual Thing cartoon, based like on Marvel 2-in-1 or based on his later series, would have probably been extremely entertaining. I mean, of Marvel characters, Spidey had multiple series going at the same time. Thing is one of the few characters that also had that going on. Fantastic Four, Marvel 2-in-1, etc. Very popular Marvel character, and, really deserved a real cartoon of his own. But alas, we're going to have to make do with Fred and Barney Meet the Thing. Honestly, though, they're kind of fun episodes. He's entertaining in them. Not a bad cartoon. It's watchable, for sure. Obviously meant for kids, but even as an adult, little nostalgia, it's watchable. So not too bad. Well, that'll do it for this little review of The Thing from 1979, Hanna-Barbera. Let me know what you think in the comments about this cartoon. If you remember watching it as a kid, I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this little video, please give it a like, subscribe, share with a friend. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there. Watch The Thing or read The Thing or maybe see him in the movies. And I will see you hopefully again soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.